people now, consumers now want to support brands who probably have their ethics in the right place, but also care for them. And I think whereas before someone might have maybe spent a load of money on like a high-end designer and bought like a 16 when they're like a 20, but they can make it work because it's got stretch. They're actually like, I'm going to spend this money on a brand that's actually trying to make clothes for me.
Welcome back to another season of Third Culture Africans. I'm proud to say Africa's #1 award-winning career and entrepreneurship podcast, voted for by you at the African Podcast and Voice Awards. I am Zeze Sal, your host. I'm obsessed with all things entrepreneurship, and our show is dedicated to igniting your entrepreneurial journey, sharing resources, and giving you the tools to pursue your dreams fearlessly. We celebrate artistry and stories from those brave enough to create something and succeed. Inspiring, motivating, and full of wonder, discover how those who succeed do it. Your support helps make this show bigger and better. Please leave a review on Apple Podcasts and join our community with weekly newsletters curated just for you. Let's connect on Instagram and Facebook at Third Culture Africans. Sit back, relax, and let's do this. Well, thank you for joining us on this week's episode of Third Culture Africans. Ngoni, I think we've been trying to get this in the diary for quite a long time.
Just a little while.
You're one busy lady. I think for me with the show, one of the key things was painting the palette of success within our community. I think our stories matter, and hopefully your story is part of an archive of stories of, Africans across the globe doing amazing things, innovative within the creative, cultural, and art space. But most importantly, I guess, building a business beyond yourself.
Yeah.
And I think for most of us, I think that seems to be an even thread or a continuous thread that runs through all of our businesses. So without further ado, drum roll, please. Ngoni is a founder of the brand We Are Kin. Also a blogger and lifestyle influencer. You've been voted Forbes 30 Under 30 for Europe Arts and Culture list in 2022, The Guardian 2015. You were a breakout star after university and then you had your first graduate fashion week at London Fashion Week. Have I missed anything out?
No, that's it.
Oh, I did miss something out. Hold on. Uh-huh. You are a cohort in Cambridge Institute 2021 Sustainability Agenda. I did miss that. Come on now.
Sometimes I think you forget, I think probably like most creatives, you do so much and you work for the next accolade or whatever it is, and then you kind of forget about it because you're always chasing the next thing.
Well, the benchmark changes as well, right? So that's
especially
forever shifting.
Parents.
Yeah, it's forever shifting. Get your degree. Okay, great. I've got the degree. When are you marrying?
Listen.
Okay, I've married. Where's the children?
I am children. It's a whole thing.
give me a break. Can we start there? But I guess let's start with your early years because I think that's quite formative. So you're South African.
Well, dad's Zimbabwean, mum is South African.
Okay.
I was born in Zimbabwe. So I just tend to say I'm Southern African because I take bits from both cultures and I make it work.
Okay. And then up until, I guess, high school, you did that in Zimbabwe?
Actually, till I was about 10, 11.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I came to England.
Oh, wow. How did you find that transition?
Honestly, it wasn't really a big transition for me.
Okay.
In terms of it went really well because I came in at what they used to call lower school. So kids typically are nicer then.
Yeah.
It was when we went into middle that life got a bit difficult. But yeah, no, it was just people would be like, but you're from Africa. Why do you sound like that? And I'm like, you're English. Why do you sound like that?
Yeah, very much. I moved to the UK when I was 12.
Yes.
And,
okay, similar.
Yeah, I had do you hunt with spears? Do you live in a hut?
Wow.
And so after a while, I literally was feeding the fire. I was like, yeah, we have to go past lions and we have to go past, like, I literally was
Yeah. I
fanning
had
the
to climb a
flame
mountain to get to
big time.
school.
And then they're like, oh, but your English is so good. And then Spice Girls was all the rage then. So they used to call me Posh Spice. I was
Me
like,
too. Oh my gosh. I was never allowed to be like Scary Spice. But no, you're Posh Spice. I was like, listen, who do I look like? But you know what? I love Victoria Beckham. So yes, I'm Posh Spice.
Goodness, our parents emphasized good English, right?
Yeah, that's another one of those things, isn't it? When you come from somewhere that's not home, is you work so much harder.
Exactly.
I think sometimes than the natives. Yeah.
So what got you into, I guess let's start with your blogging days, because I think the blogging came first, right?
Yes.
And then fashion came after. So let's talk about you starting a blog at 16 years old.
Yeah. So I lived in Northampton. I'm actually back home now because, could not afford to buy in London just yet.
The struggle is real.
The struggle is real. And it just felt like a really small town. You could go days without seeing like another Black family, and every time we'd see one, would wave at them. Now, like, there are so many like different types of Black people in Northampton. It's like, okay, it's happening. But back then, there just wasn't really a lot going on in terms of culture or just anything fun. And so I decided to start a blog, and I would write about like things that I found fun or interesting. Some of my early blogs were literally, I like Victoria Beckham because she's great, and pictures of her like at the podcast.
Spice Girls.
Spice Girls and stuff like that. And it just kind of grew with me. And sometimes I look back on my old blog posts and I'm like, a lot of the stuff that you're still into now, but also just like a lot of growth. But I just wanted to kind of, the internet was almost a gateway to other people like me. And I'm actually friends now with a lot of bloggers I used to follow back in the day, because we're all just a bunch of weirdos on the internet.
Well, to be fair, I got put onto you through Fisayo.
Oh, yes, yeah.
So to be fair, yes, you guys keep a nice community.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Carry on.
Oh, no, that's what that was it. So that was kind of blogging. And obviously back then it wasn't a job. It didn't bring any money in, like, for a few years. And then I started getting partnerships. So one of the first people I partnered with, one of the first brands, was Nike.
Okay.
And then did a lot of work with Samsung, and then like Fashion Week. And it kind of grew from there to now. Obviously it's, part of my work, but it didn't start off that way.
So what for you would you say was like the defining moment where the blogging became a business?
When people stopped giving me free stuff and started paying me and giving me free stuff. I can't even maybe it might have been Samsung, actually. Maybe.
Was there a conscious shift for you with doing that, where I think a lot of people now you see on social and they're like, you know what,
I'm growing my brand.
Yeah, all of that. I think if we dial back to sort of, the early the late 2000s, where we're talking about you guys who started blogging because you just found a voice and you wanted to put that out there. And especially as, I guess, the blogging space was predominantly Caucasian female women.
Yes. And it was, and I did used to like love following a lot of them, but when I would find women who looked like me, it just meant a lot more. And that was another way, being a girl in Northampton, to kind of find a bit more of community was on the internet.
Because there was only like there was only a few of you guys. There was Abby, there was Fisayo, like the African girls who were in that blogging space. Because predominantly it was, girls from, wealthy families who were Caucasian. There were no African girls who were out there. And there was a lot of like African Americans from the US. But when we started to talk about like African girls who were really, and who looked like the rest of us, right? I think that was the key, because, you're a fuller woman. And Fisayo is a petite woman. Abby's a fuller woman, and there was a palette that wasn't being shown to the rest of the world. How did you find the early days navigating the space, being of, I guess, African heritage, and then coming into a space where it's like, where do we fit you in, kind of thing?
So for me, just by virtue of growing up in like Southern Africa, I was used to being in the majority, being Black. And I've always carried that sense of if I'm in a room and I'm like one of the only or the only, I look at the room like this room is wrong, as opposed to I'm not supposed to be here or there's something wrong with me, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
I think it gave me that innateness of I am the default. You're not the default.
Totally.
And also, I have a mum who really just worked with me from a young age because she's so confident in herself. She really gave me a lot of confidence. I say I'm borderline delusional. And so obviously we all experience micro and macro aggressions for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But some things I will just fully miss it because I'm like, what? Like, and it's just down to just being a little bit delusional. Maybe that's like a coping thing. But yeah, so I never really thought, oh, I need to look like these girls or be da-da-da. I was just going to be, I'm going to be great and things will happen for me how they should. And also being someone of faith as well.
Yeah, but
another thing of God will make it work. Mm-hmm.
But do you think it's delusion versus actually you being in a space where you grew up being okay being Black and your hair being, having coils and that was okay. Whereas when you come into a country and then someone's trying to tell you that that's actually not okay and you're like, hold up, what? What do you mean it's not okay? Because there's nothing wrong with the food I eat. Like everyone eats the food and I love it. I have an almost 5-year-old.
Yes.
And my daughter will tell you her favorite food is Gary. And she had a play date and I said to her, okay, so what would you like to have to eat on this play date? And she was like, Gary. I looked at her, I was like, child.
It's not every day, baby.
No, but what's interesting is even though she was born in the UK and has only visited Africa, she doesn't have, and I guess it's a generational thing where, growing up, you can see like girls like you, or, there's the Little Mermaid that has, a person of color and all of these things. Whereas for her, she doesn't need permission to tell you that she likes Gary. She tells you she likes Gary, she likes jollof rice, and that's what she likes. And so I guess back to my initial question, which is, is it delusion or is it that you already had a sense of identity?
I think it's definitely the sense of identity. And also, I think having a mother, because my mum's a teacher who probably knew a lot more about what goes on in schools and really wanted to make sure that going into it, I would be strong within myself, because I was actually bullied quite a bit, in middle and then also in my senior school. Yeah. Not the kind of bullying you see on TV, but girls can be very cutting.
Very.
And I think she just kind of prepared me for that. And yeah, my parents have both always, just from a young age, they would actually listen to what I had to say. Like at 5 years old, I had a vote in like what the family was going to do that day, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally.
And all those things have definitely created a very strong woman. And now some of my guy friends are having daughters and I'm like, listen, you guys have got to be the ones that imbue this like confidence and strength in your daughters, because the world is going to try to take it from them, especially if they're Black. You're a woman, but you're Black. That's two things.
Yeah, very true. And I think there's something about, I guess, culturally where... Like my mom even identifies where she says, you're parenting so differently to how I even parented.
Yeah.
And, navigating life in such a different climate to the life, like to the world your parents knew.
Yeah.
But you took the blogging and you made something of it.
Yes.
And then there was going into university. Now, how did the conversation go about going into fashion in your household?
Oh gosh, so dad's an engineer, very smart guy, and I used to watch fashion TV all the time, and it used to be runway shows.
Where's it gone, fashion TV?
I don't know, but I just watch runway shows all the time, and I was really into like my textiles lessons and making all these projects. And so when I said to my very, academic dad, oh, I want to do fashion. And he was like, is it me? Is it because I've been taking you to Hobbycraft to buy these canvases? He was so distraught. He was like, what is happening? And my mum was like to him, George, have you not seen your daughter over these years, like what she's interested in? Because growing up, I'd always said, call me Dr. NRC. I wanted to be a doctor. I wanted to help people. But I'm one of those people who also has conversations themselves. And I remember I was like 14, 15, and I sat with myself in my head and I was like, yes, you want to help people, but being a doctor won't make you happy. And also, you don't really like blood. So you won't be a great doctor. How about you do something you love, hopefully make a ton of money, and then you can help people that way. And so that was like the thought process with myself. And then I read an article by Harriet Quick in British Vogue where she spoke about the trophy jacket. So about a week, 2 weeks, I wanted to be a fashion journalist. And then I said to myself, no, I want to be the one that's being written about. And so that's how I decided to do fashion. And then obviously having that conversation with my dad, he's like, oh God, my daughter. And my mum was just fully supportive. And Dad was like, I mean, if this is what you want to do, fine, but you have to marry well.
Well,
and here we are 12 years later, still unmarried. But
honestly, I don't think you should rush it. Take your time.
Oh, girl, I know. Listen, although I am in love. But but I feel like this is like the right kind of time. I think, this is a lot, but that's a story for another podcast. It sure
is. I sent it. So my sister sent me this, these like memes.
Yeah.
Right. And it says, let's get married and have kids. So instead of using our years of education to change the world, we can be butlers to tiny people who won't stop screaming at us.
Yes, I've seen that before. And, let's so critical thinking, guys.
It is so accurate because that is what awaits.
Yes.
And then after all that, they don't even have time for you.
And also, listen, I've been in a little present. I'm big 30. I'm very much financially independent. But listen, I drove to my dad's on Sunday for a hug. I wanted a hug. And he's, I'll come in. I was like, no, I just wanted a hug. I've got to go now. And he was like, okay, bye.
To be honest, I feel you on that. Like, I literally tell my daughter sometimes, I'm like, I need my mummy. So I call my mum. Because like, we're also someone's, like, I try to remind
I'm someone's
her,
little girl.
I'm someone's child. I'm like, I have a mummy too, Like,
exactly.
We're having
my mummy,
toddler conversations. I'm like, I'm calling my mummy and I'm going to tell her what you did to me. The thing is, my gosh, no one prepares you for this. Okay, so then you go in and do your fashion degree.
Yes. I did an art foundation actually before.
Okay.
So I did a foundation degree. It was a year spent making art in the art studios at University of Northampton. And that was a lot of fun because I just felt like I wasn't creative enough to go straight away from school to university. And I just wanted to have a bit of fun as well. And so I did that and then, went into my degree. I actually won a scholarship my first year.
Wow.
Called the Maggie Barwell Scholarship. It was £15,000. It wasn't means tested. But what you had to do was to write what you were going to use that money for. So it's $5,000 each year of study. Yeah. And you had to write why you wanted this money. And I was like, well, I do this in my blogging career. I want to be like a really strong fashion designer. I'll use this money to intern and do this and do that.
Amazing.
And then I won it. And it was like really great. And then in my final year, I won another scholarship. Again, not means tested, but you, again, has to do a presentation. And one thing I'll say to young people is just because you're young doesn't mean you'll get away with stuff. So when I went into this presentation, Zeze, I wore a suit. I like a suit though. I'm a suit girl. So
we'll get to your outfit soon.
Okay.
We'll get to the fashion bit soon. Because you bring it. You bring it 24/7. I'm like, I need this girl's confidence. But we'll get to that.
Yeah. So, yes. Okay. So I wore a suit because I was going to be presenting to a bunch of much older white men in the leather business because the Cordwainers, it's a leather kind of company. Not company in the way that I mean a brand. It's just it's like an English thing. Anyway, so I went in, I did my presentation, and I was like, I want to do this collection. It's all about strong women. A lot of my inspiration is like from Shields and warrior women, and give me this money, I'll use all the best leathers. And they gave me, it was like $3,500, and then I did it. And my final collection, I still look at it every so often, and I'm like, oh, you are that bitch.
You nailed it.
Sorry for the language, but it's
you nailed it. You nailed it. Yeah.
And that was kind of university, and I really did enjoy it. And I would go to uni, like I'd be there like 7 a.m. before anyone else was there, and I would leave like 7 after everyone else had left, because for me, this is what I really wanted to do. Sometimes people study fashion thinking, oh yeah, things will just work easy. Fashion is difficult. And if like my child would say to me, I don't do fashion, I would be like, why? And hopefully I would be in a position to like nepotize them, because fashion is a difficult industry when you come from a normal background. and you're just kind of getting on with it. But obviously I love it, it's rewarding, but I knew that I was going to be in a world of hard work. Yeah, so that was uni.
Amazing. And then you get to your final year, you get the sponsorship.
Yes.
Now, how does the breakout star thing work?
I don't know, to be honest with you. I feel like there was just a lot of grace, and there's been a lot of grace in my life. So I did what I did at uni, and
but you were going into university at 7 a.m. Like, I think you were doing more than the average, right? Like, you were putting in the work.
I guess, but listen, for me, I just blame God for everything, if that makes sense.
Okay. Well,
and I did work hard, absolutely. But
so was there something about you blogging and being, I guess, the hanger for other brands that helped you shape how you were becoming a designer in yourself?
I think probably organically. I would love to be one of those people who tells you that I've orchestrated my whole life. I've always had a plan, but how things have happened, honestly, I'm just grateful, if that makes sense. But I think, it definitely informed things, because even just going to like Paris Fashion Weeks and then coming back to like work on, because it would be in September, and September is when like uni starts. So I'd usually miss the first few days of uni because I was at Fashion Week, come in, obviously all that kind of stuff, and the exposure to fabrics and like a different kind of life and, inspiration for sure. Actually, yeah, you're right. It did inform a lot, consciously and subconsciously. Yeah.
Amazing. And then we get into you then deciding on starting We Are Kin.
Yeah.
So can you talk me through what that moment was for you, where you kind of thought, you know what, I can do this?
So I was in my flat in London, and I had been, I'd worked for a couple of companies. And I didn't like a lot of the practices that I saw.
Shall they remain nameless?
They will.
Okay.
So some companies I worked with are great, some were not great. And some of the practices for me, I was just like, And then the Rana Plaza disaster happened, which was when the clothing factory in Bangladesh collapsed, basically.
Yeah.
And listen, guys, I'm a luxury girl. I love the fashions, okay? And I just remember seeing that and thinking to myself, this industry I love is so toxic. It's so harmful. It's bad for the people. It's bad for the planet. I kind of want to do something a bit different. And so that's how We Are Kin came about. And I remember trying to think of what I wanted to call it. And I wanted it to be something whereby people could all feel a part of it. So that's kind of how I ended up with kinship, kin. And then I was like, We Are Kin, because I didn't just want it to be about me. But also, this has always been my like practice run, if that makes sense.
Yes,
running a brand. Hence why I didn't immediately call it Ngoni, because I'm sure, you're like, why did you not call it your name? Because you seem like that kind of person. It's coming at some point, guys. But so that's how that came about. And I just wanted to start a brand that, yes, was profitable, but it also put people and planet above profit, because I think it's really important. And also for me to sleep well at night, I just need to know that people are being paid well. And also that I'm not damaging the planet or doing my best to minimize it, because fashion, while beautiful, has a very ugly side. That's the third biggest polluter.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Got you. So you then start We Are Kin. How do you start it? Where's the money coming from? Where do you begin?
So where did I get money from? I just graduated uni, so I had definitely had a little bit left over from my scholarship. And then I'll be honest with you, I spoke to people. So my friend Abby, who you mentioned earlier, she gave me the venue for Fashion Week. At the apartment. They also happened to have hair and makeup there. So my hair and makeup was done for me. The models I got from my cousin's model agency, and then a few other girlies that I kind of knew. One of my friends was also a model. And I think I didn't pay everybody. I think I paid like 2 models. Everyone else just kind of did it for me for free, because I was like, guys, I ain't got no money. Like, let's. And then in terms of like fabrics and clothes, I just did what I could. And then I remember show day came, and one of my friends did the music for the show. Abby got me the flowers that I had, and it was that kind of like ragtag. I'm definitely sure mum and dad would have thrown me like 100, 200 here each, because I'm trying to think of my set design. I definitely paid a carpenter to make that. And that's just kind of how I did it. And I remember after the show, my dad was like, "Oh, so which one was yours?" And I was like, "No, Dad, this whole show is me." Yes. That's how like scrappy it was.
Yes.
So I really used all the things I could
Amazing.
to make it work. And influencer friends were there, a few members of the press were there. And that was how I launched my brand. And it wasn't until like a year and a half later where I actually dropped a collection, because obviously it is difficult to manufacture when you're trying to self-fund. Then that was just kind of the story of like how it started. But the thing is with me is I'm very fortunate in that the people in my life truly love me. Friends, family, people who just meet me. I'm open, I'm honest, and that has led to so many different, just saying a need. So how I found the first factory I used, I was at Wallcrest. This is like, God, years ago now. And my mum was talking to one of the merchants in this textile store called Wallcrest in East London. And she was like, "My daughter's looking for a factory. Do you guys know anybody?" And it must have been summer holidays because my mum was with me during the day. She was on skipping work. And they were like, "Oh, the factory's, there's a factory owner we know who's actually upstairs." That's how I found my factory owner. So I think when you're young, it's so good to ask questions because people will help you. I think as you get older, people are less inclined. So when you're young,
it is good to talk.
Be talking.
It's good to talk for sure.
Yeah.
So we then have your first collection come out.
Yes.
Now, at what point is there this whole sort of galvanizing happening around you and the collection and then the press and all of that?
So I'm actually on my website now so I can see my first collection. So I can remember all the trauma and really breathe it in. Yep, I've got it in front of me. It's all coming back. So I then decided to leave London because I was like, you're not an adult if your dad's paying your rent.
Okay.
Because obviously now I was, working on my label full time. Dad was paying my London rent.
Interesting choice.
I was just kind of like, no, this is not. Because here's the thing. I think it is important to know what you want your story to be. And for me, I wasn't trying to put pressure on my parents to make my dreams happen, if that makes sense. And so I moved back home. And so I lived at my mum's house. And then I worked at my dad's because he was never there. So I basically turned his house into my studio.
Yes.
He would come home and find mannequins in his living room, fabric wherever.
Goodness.
And then I also got a side gig. And that's how I made my first collection. I'll be honest, my parents definitely supported me, but not in the way you'd think, if that makes sense. I'm one of those people who I will do everything I can. And then it's like, "Mum, Dad, I've made the collection, but I don't have money to pay models or travel or to get the photographer. Can you help me with that?" So that's kind of more what it was. And that was my first collection. And I used my friend Marin. And she happened to have a friend called Georgia. And then, Esther Key was my photographer. And they were all paid. And that was my first collection. And it happened to be... I told a lie, sorry. So the studio before wasn't my dad's studio. I was sharing a studio with the rest. So Alex, Lewis, Levi, and also Slow Tie. So they would be upstairs and I was using downstairs as my fashion studio. So that's where we did the first, couple of seasons. And then when that studio closed down, that's when I then used my dad's house as a studio. And that's how it worked for that first season. And I didn't sell very many pieces of that first collection, actually.
Do you remember how many you sold?
Oh God, maybe 200. And then my next collection, I happen to have a blogger friend, actually, Dami. She's Nigerian. Me and Nigerian women love story for the ages. That's story for another time. Listen, Nigerian women and we just get along. I must be an Igbo babe, honestly.
Yeah, you must be in a different life.
Honestly. And so her and her then partner had a store in Shoreditch called Utter, I think, or Not Just Another Store London. So they stocked some of my pieces for me. And it was really nice to kind of sometimes go in the store and hear feedback from customers about what they liked, what they didn't like. And when Wearkin first started, my sizes were 8 to 16, the first collection.
Okay. So you did regular sizes.
Yeah, straight sizes. By the next collection, I was doing 6 to 26 because being a Southern African woman, our idea of beauty is curves.
Yeah, totally.
So,
and you guys come ready-made with curves.
Listen. The tailoring bills really do bill.
Yeah.
And so I was like, no, let me try to figure this out and really just begin as I mean to go on. As much as I have this principle about people and planet over profit, I also just want to be size inclusive. I want all women to be able to buy my clothes and feel great. And I'll figure it out. And so I had to teach myself how to cut patterns, because I do my own pattern cutting in bigger sizes.
Is that because like the traditional sort of contract manufacturers won't or don't know how to cut patterns for bigger women?
No, they will charge you money. Yeah.
They would charge you more money than cutting.
No, they'll charge you money in general. I remember I'm like being like scrappy with it.
Okay.
And so it was cheaper for me to sit there, watch YouTube, read all the books and learn how to like, cut than it was to like pay someone a lot of money to do it. But also with We Are Kin, our sizing is very much like on the nose. We don't get returns on sizing. We don't really get many returns anyway, but definitely not on sizing. Because someone wants to send something back, we're like, yeah, sure, of course you can, but could you let us know why? And it's usually like, wrong time, or maybe like, or whatever it might be, but it's not about sizing for the most part. And so that's why, or that's how the size inclusivity bit came into the brand. It was just that important to me, being like, I mean, I've always been like between a 10 and a 14, currently maybe 14, 16. Gosh, but my bodies.
Pandemic did the most for everyone.
Listen, we're here. It's all right.
Pandemic did it.
And so I just wanted women to actually be able to just wear my clothes and feel good. And also if somebody is like bigger or smaller than a 6 or 26, I'm always like, drop us a note. We will get your measurements and we'll make the piece for you. That's fine. That's also the beauty of made to order. And that's why, sizing is important to us. I think I went off on a tangent then, but
no, but that's okay. Because I think, everyone wants to know, but what makes you different from every other brand, right?
Yeah.
And so I think what you've shared is key, because for a curvier woman, I know that I've got a lordotic spine. And so finding a pair of trousers or a skirt that's going to fit where it hugs my waist and then allows space and
flatters the bum.
And I don't have hips, right? Like I have more hips than I did before having a kid.
Yeah.
But I know that no one cuts for my shape. So then you're limited with what kind of clothing you wear.
Yeah.
So I think the idea that you cut for a specific type of body is so key. And I guess that's where the next question comes into play, which is, how do you decide what you charge?
So the typical fashion model is cost of like the fabric plus production, so manufacturing, times 2, that's the wholesale price. And then you as a customer, you then tend to get another times 2 or times 2.2 on top of that. Because We Are Kin is like, owned by me.
Yes.
I tend to do cost of production and like fabric or whatever trims and things times 2.5. So I do charge less than I actually should. And it's so funny when people tell me that, oh, your clothes are expensive, because things with We Are Kin tend to be from about 60 to about 210, 250. And I'm like, if I was actually charging you what I should charge.
Yes.
Because I want it to also be accessible. And I'm here I would rather have slow growth and grow and grow and grow and grow than to like, you've seen it with brands who we all love, but they come in, they charge what they charge, and then they also just kind of burn out after a while. And it's not their fault. The clothes should cost that much, but it's just, you want more consumers. And I just want, if it means more people can wear my clothes, that's okay, as long as I've paid my suppliers and my manufacturer.
So how much does the customer play a role in your designing process? Now, like, your clothes are very clean lined and I'm trying to think of the right word, refined. And it's clean lines, refined. It's very like remember that show that had Olivia Pope and like every
it's Scandal.
It's very much that aesthetic. Now, what role does I guess, your customer play in that? Like, is she a professional? Do you think about those things even?
Yeah. Right. So I make clothes I want to wear. I make clothes I think women who are in their early 20s would want to wear, women in their mid 40s will want to wear. That's kind of how I start. But I do listen to my customers. So if I had my way, I could wear black all the time. But time and time again, like, my customers have been like, we want to see color, we want to see print. So this season you can see color, you can see print, and I'll see how that goes. And that will inform the next season. So each season has learnings. Like I said, the first season, the sizing was tight. The next season it's been opened, and so on and so forth. So with We Are Kin, I do believe that I'm in kinship with my customers. So they inform what I then do next with what they tell me. Like, I'm always listening to their feedback.
And then technology. One of the things that struck me about your website was that you go onto your site and you don't have actual models wearing the clothes. They are, I want to
like
say,
3D renders.
Yes. What role is technology playing in your business with We Are Kin today? And was that a conscious choice to go down that route as opposed to the trajectory? I know it's a probably three-pronged question. But...
It was a conscious choice, just because it allows the consumer to see themselves in the clothes, right? 1. 2, it is also less wasteful. So there's less waste in terms of like making samples that only the model can wear, being like, 5'11", whatever size they might be. Then those clothes will just sit around. And it's like, waste in terms of money as well, like having to do the whole shoot thing, although that is really lovely and I would love to do one again. But I just wanted to try it out because it was fun. So I did it last season, and I had help from James Mack and a designer, 3D digital designer, Laura.
Okay.
Laura Senkut, who did, her and James. So James did my animation, so where it would move with the wind, almost, these 3D renders. And then this season I did them myself because, again, I sat down, I had a week, and I was like, let's figure out how to design 3D. And I did it. I didn't think I was going to get it, but I did.
Yeah.
And that's just like another little skill. And one thing I do love is, like, I'm always open and wanting to learn. I think that's really important. And also with 3D design, instead of you having to sit around hours, maybe days in the studio trying to figure out how a garment works, you can do the exact same thing using your computer. So I can like drape on it. I can pin things. I can do whatever I want to do and see it. And then I can also visualize it in different sizes, which again makes design really fun and also easy.
So the part of that process that you're now doing the whole computer generated thing, did you learn that on the job?
Yeah.
Okay.
I literally bought a Udemy course. It's one of those websites. And what the software I use is Clo 3D. And I'm not joking, I sat there for a week. Every day I'd go downstairs in my studio at my desk and do the lessons. And then, because I'm impatient, I also did kind of rush and do certain things myself, figure it out. Oh, I've messed up. Okay, let me see what I missed. And that, I believe, I learn from doing. Some people can learn from reading. I learn from doing. So yeah, that's what I did.
And then I guess the next question is about growth, scaling. You get your Forbes 30 under 30. Now, what does that do for you in terms of how you see your business? And also where you start to think of the goals you have for your business?
It's really hard with like an ethical business because it's not like any other kind of fashion brand where it's like, my goals are just my goals, if that makes sense, because I use a lot of dead stock, end of line fabric. And then also I do made to order. It's a little bit difficult in terms of scaling. So I've been approached by a lot of the big guys, to be honest, to either be stocked or to work with them. And for one, it was kind of like, if I make 30,000 pieces for you, the brand is no longer going to be sustainable because I know you're absolutely going to have some stock left over. And then what are you going to do with that stock? Are you going to burn it? Or are you going to sell it back to me? And then I end up with like stock that, because they just like to order big numbers. They're not going to look at, does that make sense? It doesn't matter to them to really be like tight with like what orders they want to make. They just want to order a load, get on with it. And then it ends up being a problem for either you, the brand, because it's sale or return. So what they don't sell, you then have to buy back from them, or they keep it, but then they burn it, or, it ends up in the global south. That's one reason.
So did you ever try going into retailers?
Yeah, no, I've spoken to quite a few. Like, retailers have always come to me, and like I'm saying, it just didn't seem like the brand could still be sustainable with a lot of the things that have come to me so far. So if you do see we are kin working with a big retailer, know that the values that are important to the brand are still intact. The reason why we haven't yet is that it's hard to, when you try to do business with heart, it gets really difficult and muddy. But for me, this is what matters most, is that the heart is kept in the business. And so I'm fine with, the growth and where it's going. I do want it to grow more, and it will do. But yeah.
Amazing. And in terms of managing the highs and lows of entrepreneurship, right? Like, we know that's real.
Yeah.
And it exists in ferocity.
Yeah.
It's quite ferocious. How do you deal with that? Say, for instance, something like the pandemic, because your clothes are beautiful clothing.
The pandemic. Yeah, let me tell you about that.
Yeah.
So my mum's got a heart condition. So come March 2020, I'm seeing this thing coming around. I kicked both my brothers out. I was like, go to your house. Locking this house down, right? Because I feel like this thing is going to be really bad, and I just feel like it won't be good for mum's heart. And then I'm like, April time, who's buying clothes? Because that's when we were kind of got in lockdown. It's like, who's going to buy clothes? Like, my brand's going to fold because my brand needs money each season, each year. And I was like, what's going to happen? But at the same time, I was like, do you know what? If that's what I have to do, that's what I have to do. And then actually, people were buying more.
Really?
People buying a lot more. People were really shopping. People wanted to buy my brand because it was a Black-owned brand. People wanted to buy my brand because it was a small brand. People wanted to buy my brand because it was made in England. And press was pressing. And that's another example, because obviously I'm faith-based. So I'm like, God really just did his thing, because like the pandemic was really great for my brand.
Wow.
And also a lot of international customers got onto We Are Kin. And the difference with American consumers and British consumers is, an American consumer, especially plus size girlies, I love them so much.
Yeah.
They will not just buy one thing. You give a plus size girl something that works for their body and their shape, they will buy it in every color. They will buy all the other pieces in your collection. American girls too.
But isn't that because there just isn't enough out there?
Yes, but also I think consumers now want to support brands who probably have their ethics in the right place, but also care for them. And I think whereas before someone might have maybe spent a load of money on like a high-end designer and bought like a 16 when they're like a 20, but they can make it work because it's got stretch. They're actually like, I'm going to spend this money on a brand that's actually trying to make clothes
to me. Yeah.
And I don't have to like squeeze myself and do all this madness to get into it, if that makes sense. So I think that too. But no, I don't understand why businesses don't cater more to plus women, because one, they know how to dress because they have less to play with.
Yeah.
And also, I just feel like they have the money. I'm sorry. Like, this is such an untapped market. And I'm saying this from a business point of view. Obviously, again,
yes.
The women in my family, in my life, are plus.
Yes.
Or at the very least, not straight size, right?
Yeah.
But then when you look at it from a business point of view, come on. And it's just, I don't get why businesses don't. I'm just like, you just hate. You hate money.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and it's the same thing that's happened in the beauty industry, right?
Yes, because Black women spend the most on beauty. Did you know that?
Yes, I do.
And
know
yet
that.
our beauties. Oh, of course you know this. Sorry, I'm shouting now. I love your scent. That there's this limey citrusy.
Thank you.
Oh, love it.
Thank you.
I actually need to get that again because I ran out a few years ago.
I'll send it to you. I'll send it to you. I feel like there is something around. And this also happens to us as entrepreneurs or business people creating, right? I feel like there's almost like a mind blank when it comes to the Black consumer or the African consumer. I just had a friend, Winnie, who's just put out this amazing report which is on type 4 hair.
Yeah.
I write a column called Out of Africa, and the goal is really just to put a spotlight on the African cosmetics industry, our trends, what we're buying, what we like. And you will be so surprised that there is zero information about us. None.
Yeah. Wow.
There are no reports in the same way that there are reports on the industry. And unfortunately, what's happened is literally there's a complete black hole when it comes to looking at the African consumer.
Yeah.
Now, on the continent of Africa, in terms of population, it seems crazy that that isn't even a consideration.
Yeah.
And yes, there are some barriers to entry or even infrastructure issues, but nonetheless, like we have, an insane population and have one of the fastest growing populations in the world. So how we are left out of sort of mainstream marketplace is a constant concern for me. Now, you've come from utilizing social media, being, an African woman of color, and then being, a fuller woman, plus size woman. You weren't plus size then, but you weren't a straight size, and all of these different things. Now, how have you leveraged your knowledge of social media? Because everyone talks about build your brand, social media, all of these different things. Now, one, how have you leveraged it? Two, what part does it actually play? Really, like, give me the low, because I'm of a different school, right? Like, I'm of the school that like social and web is just a nice place for someone to go find information. It's not something you can. Well, I haven't been able to master converting it. So tell me, as someone who leverages that, how does that work for you?
Before I start, right, I could be a lot better at leveraging my social.
What?
I could do a lot more. I absolutely no, Zeze. It's for real, Zeze.
What do you say about someone like me?
well, story for another time. Let's take that offline. I'll shout at you offline. But for me, what has worked is that people have bought into me as a person. They see who I am. They see how I live. They see my integrity. And so even if I'm not working within my own brand and I'm talking about something else, they know that if I say I like it, they know I like it. Yeah. Because they see me with my dog, with my mum, in my allotment, in my studio. They see me, I've got a baby shower, I need to make a dress. Guys, come along with me and watch me make this dress today. It's that kind of open and integrity. And you don't have to get too much into your private business. I don't think people know actually a lot about me. They know what I want them to know. Yeah. But then when it then comes to, guys, I've just dropped a new collection. Oh, look at this dress that I'm wearing that I made. It's so beautiful. It's on my website. People want to buy into that. And sometimes I feel like someone's just like, you know what, they just like who you are and they will invest in you, whether that's sharing your pieces, buying something for their partner, buying something themselves, or even just bigging you up because your name is spoken in rooms you're not even aware of. And I think when people enjoy you, it works quite well. I've done collaborations or talks that wouldn't make any sense to anybody else, just due to somebody liking me. So last year I did a talk for EA, Electronic Arts, the games people. Yeah. By the way, I grew up playing Burnout, which was like the big car crash game. Really enjoyed it. Oh my God. I gave a talk to them about what it was like to be an entrepreneur. But when you think about fashion and gaming, you're not going to put that together. But I guarantee you, somebody there was like, this girl's a lot of fun. Let's bring her in. They didn't know that I was already like, I used to be such a big gamer and, all that kind of stuff. Those things happen. But I think there is a way to really do it. If I was to post every single day at the exact same time, whether it's like I do something where it's educational, and then I do something that's more fun, and then more of a BTS, that's like, 6 days a week, that would grow my brand. That would also grow my actual, like, we are kin. It's just, I'm just really busy. But also I spend a lot of my time living life and not recording it. So that's like why I said I could be a lot better. But what I do is I do talk. And sometimes if I have a hard week, I say that too. And I post little encouraging things on stories. And, now I do this thing every week called Sustainability News, where I kind of round up top 3 sustainability news stories that people might have missed or may not understood. Because sustainability is such a big thing. And I feel like that's also just been helping because I was with some of my girlfriends the other day who I grew up with, Nigerian girlies. And
you know you love us.
Listen, you people love me. It's me you love, okay? I can't escape you people. No, but one of them was like, oh, she was going on vacation. She came to borrow some of my clothes. And she was like, I was actually going to go on Shein, but Ngoni, every time I typed in that website last week into my browser, I could hear your voice.
Oh, wow.
And so it's things like that. And I know that, yes, that's someone who knows me. But I know strangers on the internet are also going to be having that same thing.
Well, that was going to be another question from
yes.
me, which is you fast fashion, right?
Yes.
And there are, and this is a thing, right? Like we all want to look good. We all want to look on trend.
Absolutely.
But you make classic pieces,
mm-hmm.
timeless pieces. Now, how do you navigate that space where, you know, your friends are going on Shein?
Mm-hmm. So with me, my values are very loud and very direct. And I also just bring it up, but not in an accusatory way. Here's the thing. Everybody wants to look good. That's human. And it's not, I know sometimes people look at fashion as like unimportant. Fashion is very important. People will address you by how you're dressed. We can't like ever
1000%
kind of forget that point. And we all want to look good. We all want to feel good. And so people do, you know, shop fast fashion. Some people shop it because that's the only way they can get their sizes. Some people shop it because that's all they can afford. But for me, it's if you're buying, you know, a £300 haul from Shein or Zara, honey, you can afford to buy less and buy better. It doesn't have to be for me. There are lots of brands. There are Hoochie There are Hoochie sustainable brands. There are, you know, whatever kind of your vibe is.
Yes.
There is a sustainable brand for that. And I just think, you know, so I do have those conversations. And sometimes people will ask me, I want to like, you know, a cutout dress. Where can I get that from? Or whatever it might be. And also when I find new things, like even just knickers, you know, I'll be like, oh guys, I found this brand that does like, you know, sustainable knickers or pajamas or whatever. And it's all about information sharing. And again, that also feeds into people trusting you, if that makes sense.
Yes, yes.
So, yeah.
Amazing. Now, next question, and I'll move away from the sort of social side of things because I really want to talk about sustainability. What part of you feels like, because you mentioned, you know, if you were posting regularly, you'd grow your brand, grow your personal brand as well. What part of you feels like, and this is a choice, right? I was having this conversation with a bunch of ladies who are also in business, and you know, it was, oh my god, this person's blown up and that person's blown up, and you come from an era where, you know, some of your peers, you
have
know,
blown up,
have blown up, and it's not like you are less talented than they are, or that your content is less interesting than they are. And I was saying, but we all make a choice on what we're building. Yes. Are we building something long term? Are we building something that we want to supersede our time on this earth?
Yeah.
What was that for you? Because someone can say, oh, but Ngoni, you're from the generation where actually you should be sitting on hundreds of thousands of followers by now. What was it for you where you kind of took a step back and was like, this isn't what I want? You mentioned this, the lack of sustainability in the industry. Was there more that influenced that?
So with like everybody else who has blown or however they've blown, for me, it sounds very like self-righteous, but I'm just all about women winning. I feel like as long as there's a girlfriend winning, a woman winning, I'm okay with that. Even if sometimes I want that to be me, if that makes sense.
Totally.
I would rather see somebody who looks like me than to not having. I'm not one of those I have to be the only ones kinds of people. But sometimes, you know, sometimes not even recently, but yeah, definitely at certain times in the past, there's been times where I'm like, oh, but I want these numbers too, and da 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 da. But then it's like, okay, it will happen for you someday, and it also might not. But like, your journey is your own journey. And that's something that, again, remember earlier I spoke about my mum being so confident and imbuing me with all this self-confidence.
Yeah.
I genuinely believe that I will never miss out on anything that's for me.
1,001%.
So if something happens and it doesn't happen for me, it wasn't for me in that moment. And at some point it might be, or something else might be coming.
Yes.
And I don't play the comparison game at all, ever.
Mm.
Because you cannot compare to me. I can't compare to you. Does that make sense?
This is true.
But I can understand the feelings of it, because I remember I'm also a woman who went to a girls' school, so I understand how women sometimes we can think and we can feel. I'm just a little bit beyond that, just by virtue of my upbringing and also having 2 brothers and a dad who all bully me mercilessly. So I've got bigger problems at home.
Yes.
So yeah, so that bit, yeah, but also a lot of these girls work hard. Some people, it just happen by luck or whatever, but a lot of these ladies work bloody hard.
I don't think there's any luck in it, darling. Like to
Okay.
post
Fair.
content every day.
Yes.
La, la. In fact, to remember to capture the moment while you're living it and make sure it's aesthetically pleasing.
Yes.
Then to now come up with a strategy that means that you're posting the content. Like, honestly.
No, but there is also an element of luck, because you can post all you want and it can be beautiful and really whatever. Like my trip to Marrakesh early this year, beautiful, took all the best photos, I didn't get more than like 250 likes.
Hey, good.
I post a photo, just a random photo of me, this week, like nearly 400. So it's one of those where there is also an element of luck in it as well, because I was being really like, on it and all of that, and sometimes I'm really on it and the figures are great, sometimes I'm really on it and they're not. And so I think that's what I'm saying, they do work really hard, but also there is also an element of right place, right time, because one person can share you and make everybody else then share you just by they saw it shared, they're like, oh, I want to share this too. Other times nobody shares it at all. So for me, I look a lot at my saved. So people, when someone bookmarks essentially your Instagram post, right?
Yes.
So some of my posts can have let's say 250 likes, right? And then the saved will be like 80. So 80 people have saved that as like inspo, or they like the dress I was wearing. Okay. And then boom, sales on the website or whatever it might be. So metrics also can mean very different things, because you can also have, I've seen it where someone has bought one of my pieces, massive following, they wear it, they tag it, I get nothing from it. Wow. Last summer I had a lady in her 40s buy the Juliet mini dress, right? She's got about 70k followers. And I had to turn off my phone notifications, because my phone would ping like with a cash sound every time a sale was made.
Wow.
And at the same time, I'd had somebody who had like 500,000.
Yes.
Like the month before, and that brought nothing.
Crickets.
Not even clicks through to the website. And so that's what I mean. It's sometimes also metrics can. I want to see the metric in my bank account.
You know what? That's what I tell everyone. So the other day I actually posted about the show, and I was saying, and it was about validation, and on the face of it, we only have like 1,300 or something followers on Instagram. Yeah, saying that all 20,000 plus of you that tune into the show, please, can you just like and follow us on Instagram?
Because then
the idea of these metrics around social media almost being like a chokehold for most people, right? What part of that do you kind of leave to the wayside and focus on the metric of your bank balance?
I literally leave those metrics alone. Like the following, sometimes my boyfriend will be like, oh babe, you're at 20.2. Oh babe, you're back at 20.1. And I'm like, it's okay. Like it's fine. Because for me, it's more about the actual sales and that conversion and how that's happening. But that's when you have to realize what's important to you. Because for some people, what's famous is being known. It's being famous, it's being whatever. For me, I've always loved the designers of old, like a DVF, Diane von Furstenberg, or Donna Karan. A lot of people could not point those women out on the street. But I don't know about you, but like Donna Karan is like everywhere.
She's the goat.
A bag, a sheet from HomeSense, whatever it is, that brand is everywhere. And that's kind of like more my vibe. Is I would rather like people had We Are Kin in many different areas, and we were really pushing that message of sustainability than anybody kind of knows my name. don't get me wrong, sometimes having those numbers does help you get deals. So for sure, I don't doubt that if I had more numbers, I would probably get more favorable deals from retailers, and probably might be in some retailers, or just like bigger deals in terms of when people come work with me influencing wise. No one's disputing that. But
Yes.
I would still rather the sales, because some people have got the big numbers, but they're living at home. And there's nothing wrong with living at home. But,
as you said, they're not selling anything for you.
Exactly.
So the goal for you is right now with We Are Kin, B-Corp certification.
Yes. And also just to keep growing and sticking to those values. Every day that We Are Kin stays true to its values is a success for me. And that's another thing where you have to know what your actual indicators of success are and not what they should be. For me, it's about really going for everything with this brand and keeping it sustainable and ethical and doing the best I can by the women who buy it, by the people who make it, and also planet Earth. So that's what's important to me, genuinely. Also pay my bills, yes, because the dog needs to eat, okay?
Totally. And where do we find you?
So I'm at Ngoni Ngoni on Instagram. Don't find me on Twitter because I'd be out here tweeting like a crazy bandit. And then it's also wearekin.co online, or at wearekin.co on Instagram. And I'm always happy to answer questions and emails and things like that, and especially from like young creatives and young designers as well, but from customers as well. And also if you want something made randomly, like as in you want a wedding dress, we do those bits as well, but we have to get on because doing bridal is difficult.
I've seen some of your bridal stuff. Yeah. It's stunning stuff. Well, thank you so much for coming on this week's episode. It has been an absolute pleasure having you, and lots of gems dropped. I feel like we should have the sound effects in the background. And yes, guys, please follow us on social media. So people know that actually there are 20,000 odd of you that actually download and listen to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. And it's been a really fun chat as well. So thank you.
Oh, amazing. Thank you. Thanks, Ngoni. And we'll keep in touch and see where it goes. Go follow Ngoni.
Perfect. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you to over 20,000 of you that have tuned in and have continued to tune in. Because of you, our show is now distributed on Vodacom Africa's platform, My Muse. Your support helps make this show bigger and better. If you're a fan of the show, we would love to know. Please leave a review on Apple Podcasts and join our community with weekly newsletters curated just for you. Check out our free resources on entrepreneurship, productivity, finance, and leadership at thirdcultureafricans.com. You can now catch special episodes with video on YouTube at Third Culture Africans. Let's connect on Instagram and Facebook at Third Culture Africans. Let's do this.